guys, it's Miranda from My Sister's Bookshelf, and today I'm doing something a little bit different. It's actually part of the Biannual Bibliothon, and that is to do a creative book review. So for my book review, I am doing My Lady Jane, and this is by Cynthia Hand, Brodi Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. This book is about Lady Jane Grey, who was actually queen for 9 days after her cousin King Edward died. She was only queen for 9 days because she was dethroned and beheaded. Now this is a historical fiction novel, so of course things aren't going to turn out exactly how they seem. This book is so funny, and they say right in the beginning that they're throwing history out the window, so to speak. So it's definitely a fun read, but I loved it. So for this review, as I'm reviewing it, I'm also going to be making a blackberry cobbler. Here are my beautiful blackberries. Because one of the main characters, which is King Edward, loves blackberries. It's his favorite, and so his kitchen staff is always making different things with blackberries, including blackberry cobbler. So that's what I'm going to make as I'm doing this review. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these beautiful blackberries. It's about 4 cups of blackberries. I'm going to rinse them off really quick. Okay, so now that I've rinsed them, the next thing I'm supposed to do is mix them with the sugar. I have a cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of lemon zest, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1.5 tablespoon of cornstarch. So as I'm mixing that, I'm also going to tell you a little bit more about the book. Blackberries are such a big part of this book because anytime Edward is thinking or anytime he is hungry, he wants blackberries, and he's always popping them in his mouth. So it says 1/2 cup of sugar, a tablespoon of lemon juice, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. And I'm just going to use a slotted spoon to mix. So as I'm mixing my blackberries, in the society at that time in England, she was just a lady, so she wasn't really part of the royal family, even though she was in line a few steps away from the throne. She still wasn't like living at the palace or anything. However, she suddenly got caught up in the middle of a plot to steal the throne, and she didn't know about it. And then she was forced to marry someone who she didn't even know. So when you first open into the book, she's about to marry a stranger, and then she's irritated because her best friend, which is also her cousin, King Edward, is also telling her to marry this guy. And she doesn't even, but she respects Edward's opinion enough to do it. This book is so good because it goes into the 3 point of views of Edward, King Edward, Lady Jane, and then Lady Jane's future husband, Gifford, which they call him G. Look, it was so surprising how it was. I expected, since it was historical fiction, I expected it to be more dramatic than funny, but it was so funny. I was laughing the whole way through this. I did listen to the audiobook on Audible, and it was incredible. Laugh out loud funny. I listened to it at work and I couldn't stop laughing, and at the same time there were parts where it was gripping and moving and beautiful, and I loved it so much. I just can't get over how much I loved it. So in this story, a lot of the big elements include friends and family. The family elements there are parts of the family elements that you get more frustrated by than getting that happy, good feeling from family, but at the same time, it helps you to kind of learn how families really are. But then you also have this cousin relationship between Lady Jane Grey and Edward, which is a very good relationship because they're like best friends. But there's a lot of friendship elements to this, relying on your friends, and also learning how to rely on your friends and counting on them, and at the same time being a good friend yourself. So now that I've mixed my blackberries with the sugar and the cornstarch and all the other good stuff, I'm going to let it sit. So now I've taken my blackberries and I've put them in a 9-inch round baking dish. You can also use a 9x9 square baking dish, which is what this recipe actually calls for, but this is what I had cleaned, so this is what I used. And you're supposed to let them sit in here for 30 minutes. I've also preheated my oven to 350 degrees, so that way it will be nice and hot when I'm ready to put that in the oven. Another cool aspect of My Lady Jane is that there actually is some really cool supernatural elements where you learn this in the beginning, so it is not a spoiler, where there are two types of people: the Verities, which are just humans, and the Ethians, which are humans that can turn into an animal. And so each person who is an Ethian has a specific animal that they can turn into, and there's also this kind of prejudice against the Ethians, where there are some Verities that believe that they're higher up, or that the Ethians shouldn't be allowed to basically be Ethians. But it's really cool because you also have that political kind of element where you have these two sides fighting. The next thing I'm going to do from our cobbler is to make the topping. And for that you need sugar, or just 3 tablespoons of sugar, a cup of flour, 1.5 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 4 tablespoons of butter, a 1/4 cup of milk, and 1 egg. So the first thing to do is to mix the flour, sugar, baking powder, and salt in a bowl. So it's 1 cup of flour, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and I'm also probably going to add a couple more tablespoons of this to our blackberry mixture. It's because I want our blackberries to be extra sweet. 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So we have our flour mixture, and now we are going to cut 4 tablespoons of butter into it. How you're supposed to cut it into it is you're supposed to have like pats of butter, and then you like mash it in with your fingers, and then that way it gets nice and it becomes more like a crumb topping. So you don't want to use softened butter, you want to use straight from the fridge, cold butter. So as I'm cutting this butter into my flour mixture, another really cool thing about My Lady Jane is there is of course some romance action. So of course Lady Jane Grey is about to marry a man that she doesn't know, which his name is Gifford. But I really love the romance aspects of it. I think that it was done so cute and in a way that was funny, but at the same time believable. And it was just, I don't know, I just think it was perfect for the story. It wasn't too sappy. It wasn't insta-love. It was just a really nice, good build to the romance aspects of it. And I just really, really loved it. Okay. The directions say to do this until it looks like coarse crumbs, which I think that's where I'm at. If you can see, it says mix well in the center. I think you're supposed to make a well into it. It is a little bit of a messy process. So now we're going to mix in about a fourth of a cup of milk into the middle, and then a partially beaten egg. And then you're supposed to do this just until the dough is just moistened. So not too much. You don't want to overly stir the batter. And what this is really making is like a biscuit batter. So it looks like a dough. So now what we do is we drop the batter on top of the blackberries, like in big spoonfuls. So this is what the product looks like right before it goes into the oven. I am going to let it sit for a few more minutes because I wasn't quite at 30 minutes before I put the batter on. So I'm going to let it sit for probably another 10 minutes before I pop it in the oven. And that's going to bake for 30 minutes at 350 degrees. I really think the authors did a fabulous job with this book and recreating a little part of history to make it lovable and laughable and just fun and having adventure and action as well. If you like historical fiction, if you like comedy, if you like adventure and having multiple perspectives within a story. I just think this will be such a great read for you, and I also think that I hope that one day in the future that this becomes a film or a movie series, because I just think that everybody would love it. I encourage everyone to pick this book up. I 100% give it a 5 out of 5 stars. For me, it was probably my favorite read of the year so far. I just think it was such a good book. It's definitely going on my favorite shelf, so I hope you guys pick it up and enjoy it. I'm going to wait for the blackberry cobbler to be done, and then in a little bit I will show you what it looks like. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope to see all of your guys' biannual bibliothon videos. I hope to do more review videos like this. They are a lot of fun. Thank you guys. Bye.